This is Viva Fry.
I'm Dr. Peter McCullough.
This is Tom Luongo.
This is Chuck Prodnick.
This is Alex Kreiner.
Hey, this is Brad Wall.
This is JP Sears.
Hi, this is Frank Peretti.
This is Tammy Peterson.
This is Danielle Smith.
This is James Lindsay.
Hey, this is Brett Kissel, and you're listening to the Shaun Newman Podcast.
Welcome to the podcast, folks. Happy Friday. That's right. A Friday episode. We haven't had that in a while. Well, of course, you got the mashup coming later today that airs live at 10 a.m. Mountain Standard Time, so make sure to pay attention for that. But you might be sitting there going, a Friday episode? Ooh, this is unusual. Well, we've been recording a bunch on this side, and, we decided to put one out for Friday this week, so hopefully you enjoyed today's show, and hopefully you tune in for the mashup as well. I do want to give a shout-out to Silver Gold Bull and Bow Valley Credit Union. They're helping bring the Cornerstone Forum back to Calgary, March 28th next year. And as we announced yesterday on Thursday's episode, Alex Kreiner, the first guest, confirmed to come back. Tickets will be going on sale shortly, and by shortly, I hope very soon. As I've been talking about all this week, I screwed up my back, and that slowed me down a little bit. And I had a lovely person say, when your body's telling you to slow down, maybe you need to slow down. I don't like slowing down, folks, as probably all of you know by now. So that has been a good reminder to take care of one's health. So I'm working on that. We're going to be bringing out the Cornerstone Forum here shortly, and shortly means soon, and soon means I'm not giving you a date, but tickets will be going on sale as fast as I can humanly possibly do it without screwing up any more of my body on this side. I didn't think I was pushing it that hard, but obviously my body says differently. So shout out to Silver Gold Bull and Bow Valley Credit Union once again, because March 28th, the Cornerstone Forum returns. And we're going to be at the Westin Calgary Airport this year. It's all going to be in one. I've announced this a couple days ago, but, the 24/7 shuttle service, so if you're flying in from afar, that's going to be super cool. You can literally don't need to rent a car this year. You can just get a shuttle over to the hotel. There's a casino there if that's your jam. If not, everything else is right in-house. So the hotel is beautiful. Conference center this year is beautiful. And looking forward to getting more of the details out. We're just finalizing the ticket website with all the details on not only tickets and the early bird prices, but the expo. So if you're interested in having your business represented there this year, that's going to be all on there. So when it all comes out, it should be, this is what I'm looking for. This is what we're going to do. And it should be nice ease of access for all of you with hopefully few questions or problems coming when we finally release it. We're just troubleshooting and walking through, making sure we're not missing anything there. And Friday night, so on March 27th, that is, we're going to be having a social. And so it's just going to be a value add for anybody attending to just have a, kind of a nice meet and greet, networking, some of the speakers there, myself included. And hopefully some of you want to attend and just get to know one another. I know the community part of this is huge for a lot of the people that attend. So Friday night, 7 to 10 p.m., we're going to be putting together just a very casual social, and more details will be coming along with tickets here once we get them out. Some dates you might want to keep in mind before March 27th, 28th is October 14th, so coming this week, next week, that is, the Health Charter Tour, the World's Greatest Health Show, Shaun Buckley in Lloydminster, 7 p.m. at the Legacy Center. October 18th, you have until Sunday to get tickets for the Prairie Rising Forum in Regina. I'll be hosting that, and we got a whole interesting guest list coming to that. Down in the show notes, you can get tickets, but the big one that I always keep pointing is Martin Armstrong is back, and he's in Saskatchewan this time. Me and him have chatted a little bit. We're going to be trying to focus on some things Saskatchewan, which should be interesting, and I think you're going to want to be in attendance for that. So make sure you get your ticket before Sunday. Sunday night, I guess, is the last day to buy a ticket. After that, ticket sales are done. So if you're wanting to attend the Prairie Rising Forum October 18th, do that here right away. October 25th, so the following weekend, Terry Bryant and Rod Giltack are going to be at in Lloydminster at the Prophet River Customer Appreciation Day. And the following Sunday, October 26th, I got Giltaca, Prodnick, Sinclair at the Lloydminster and District Fish and Game Association indoor range. Prophet River supplying the ammo. We're going to be shooting some handguns and it's $20 to attend. If you're interested, shoot me a text. I'm just trying to keep numbers so they know how many are going to be coming. It's from 1 to 4 p.m. But once again, shoot me a text for all the details. If you're interested in something going on in November, Quick Dick McDick is live in Lashburn. All the money being raised there is for the elementary school playground, so that'll be a fun evening. December 20th, I have the Dueling Pianos coming to the Gold Horse Casino here in Lloydminster. This will be my 4th installment of an SMP Christmas party. We have a few tables left. Text me if you're interested in that. And that's all I got for you today. So if you're listening or watching on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, Rumble, X, make sure to subscribe. If you're on Facebook, make sure to tune in and share the channel. Subscribe for, follow the channel, that is, and share with a friend if you're enjoying the content. Leave a review, and let's get on to that tale of the tape. Today's guest is a mechanic by day and citizen journalist by night. His YouTube channel, Clyde Do Something, has over 100,000 followers with over 50 million views, where he discusses the current Canadian political issues. I'm talking about Clyde Nichols, or Clyde Do Something. So buckle up. Here we go. Welcome to the Shaun Numa podcast. Today I'm joined by Clyde Nichols. Clyde Do Something. Clyde, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Well, okay. I've been having way too many conversations in the background and about Bill C-8, but also about a whole other plethora of things. And I'd watched your video on Bill C-8, and I'm like, well, I don't know whether we should have done a roundtable and gotten a whole bunch of, and maybe I'll have to do that again, a whole bunch of different podcasters to come on and talk about this and see their thoughts. But I thought, I haven't done anything, in passing. We've talked about Bill C-8, but nothing really, I've watched Leslie Lewis talk about it. I've watched a bunch of different videos. I'm like, man, this should concern us all. But maybe we just start by talking about Bill C-8 and see where we get to. I'm assuming everyone knows your thoughts, but maybe we'll just start on Bill C-8 and you just tell me what you see.
Okay, well, I mean, my thoughts on Bill C-8, this is, it's like other bills, right? So other bills that have come around, they come around as one iteration, and then they end up becoming this zombie that just keeps coming back every time you thwart the bill. And we work together as a community, as Canadians, to get our representatives to represent us and not want to take us out, basically. And we saw that with Bill C-10. It came out back as Bill C-11, and it passed, and then it got sped through the Senate, which is mostly Trudeau appointees at this point. It's for those Americans that are watching this, we don't have an elected Senate in Canada. It's an appointed Senate, and yeah, it very much swings in one direction. So we've had all these different internet censorship bills. We've had Bill C-11 that passed, and that was supposed to that hasn't even come into effect yet. We haven't even seen the effects of what's going to happen with Bill C-11, where they get to cater the algorithm and they get to toy with that. They haven't even taken advantage of that fully. There's Bill C-18, which was, in my estimate, was a backfire. That one backfired on them. They were supposed to be able to control the news media and who says what and what's allowed to be shared on social media. And then there were also, it was kind of a payola scam. So, if you want to have news links, you have to pay these Canadian companies in order to have the news. The cart before the horse. They didn't understand how the internet works at all. If you get free advertisement because people are sharing this stuff organically, you hope for that. You're not going to charge for that. It's crazy. But the end result was a backfiring of basically all these social media companies saying, okay, well, we're just going to no news links in Canada. That's it. So people can't get their news on their news feed. Google did bend to that one, and they said, okay, well, we'll pay you $100 million a year. Can you just go away? Canada, leave us alone. And that's really what it is. It really is that. And then Bill C-8, this new bill, I mean, this one really takes the cake. This one is not just like stopping you from being able to say what you say on the internet. And a lot of people are like, and this is the crazy part. People are not thinking correctly about how to avoid this one. People are telling each other on the internet, oh, get yourself a VPN. Make sure, you use a Tor browser or things like that. It's not going to help you, and the government can shut you down at the ISP level. And what I mean by that is the government will be able to, and not through any judicial process, no warrants, nothing like that. The Minister Jolie with the guy, I can never pronounce his name, safety minister, will be able to coordinate because they don't like you and what you're doing on the internet, and have your service provider shut you down without a warrant, without any court order, and without you even knowing what's happening. You won't even be allowed to ask them why. They won't be allowed to tell you. They just have to say, sorry, we just can't provide you service anymore. This is crazy. This is absolutely crazy when you think about it, that one day Rogers or Telus or whatever company that you, one of the monopolies, a few companies that we have in Canada, will just shut your service off one day. You'll try to contact them and then they won't be able to tell you why. That's it. And we're talking internet, home phone, cell phone, won't be able to connect to the internet there either. What were the repercussions of this? You said something that somebody didn't like on the internet and they shut your life off. You won't be able to access your bank account. You won't be able to access job banks if you're looking for jobs and you don't currently have one. You won't be able to even access your payroll. Most payroll goes through internet services. This is unbelievable. And it really is a way for the government to shut people off. That's it. It's scary, and it's scary for good reason. And this isn't hyperbole. This is literally what's written in the bill. And they might say, well, I mean, that's not what we're going to do with it. Don't ever take a government at their word that they're not going to do something when they give themselves a power to do it. They didn't even have the power to take people's bank accounts away. And they did that during the Freedom Convoy. They did it illegally. It was ruled by a court judge that the Emergencies Act that they declared was done unlawfully, and yet they still did it, and there's no accountability. So don't expect them to not use the powers that they're granting themselves here. It's really Orwellian and terrifying.
The guy, the safety minister, Gary Anand Sandgri, I butcher it, but that's all right. We get the point. We get the point. I keep going back to a conversation I had with Ron Wallace and Tammy Nemeth, because we were talking about the National Energy Board and national infrastructure projects, right? And this Bill C5 they brought in that basically allows them to push national infrastructure projects, essentially. I'm butchering it a little bit, folks, but you get the point. And what concerned him back then, which is only, I don't know, a month ago, was that they were taking the power out of experts' hands. And I always joke about that word because we all know what we think of that word. But regardless, people looking at the economic feasibility of a project and putting it in the minister's hands. And what he was pointing out was, now you're dealing with ideology. So now we're going to save the world. And so this project, whether it costs 20 billion, 50 billion, you get the point. As long as it is going to the goal of, getting us carbon neutral or whatever, they're going to push it forward. And now you have a bunch of people or ministers who don't have background in building these projects, pushing them. And once again, this Bill C8, when you talk about it giving the power to the ministers, to me, it's starting to look more and more like we're going to push all the power into a small group of people who I think concerns both of us and should concern more Canadians to have ultimate power over the direction of our country. And I think that's been the case for a long time, but now they're putting laws in place to really solidify it. And we're like this Bill C8, it's not hyperbole to say, in if this comes in, how long until they pull Clyde or Jasmine Lane or I don't know, just take your picks of who you want. Rebel News, on and on and on. Western Standard. I don't know. Like, I don't think that's really throwing gas on the fire. I think the fire is already a giant flame, isn't it?
Well, there's a lot to swallow there. I mean, Bill C8 will pass. It will pass. It will pass. Whether it passes in this form, iteration, or it comes back as Bill C9. I mean, this is the way these bills work. They want this. It was Bill C63 before, and there were different provisions in Bill C63, but along similar lines. And don't worry, Bill C63 is going to come back as well. But you get into Bill C5, which I don't know what the actual verbiage was for the name of the bill. But I mean, it should have been called the Joseph Stalin bill, or the Mao Zedong bill, or the
Bill C8, officially titled as an act respecting cybersecurity, amending the Telecommunications Act and making consequential amendments to other acts.
No, I'm talking about Bill C5.
Oh, Bill C5. Oh, I can find that.
Yeah, Bill C5. I mean, they might as well have called it the Central Planner Bill. And
Yes,
this is why
sorry.
I'm super disappointed. I mean,
Bill C5, just to hop in for a sec, officially titled an act to enact
Yeah,
the
right.
Free Trade and Labor Mobility in Canada Act and the Building Canada Act, also known as the One Canadian Economy Act.
That should scare people. The One Canadian Economy. We're supposed to be a lot of provinces. We're all supposed to have our own autonomy. But this is central authority. This is central planning. And this is why I'm absolutely disappointed in the Conservatives for going along with this. And I know why they did, because they thought, well, power is going to shift one day, and then we're good guys. We'll be able to use this central authority in a good way. Isn't that how all bad guys start with their whole idea? But the idea here is that the government knows better than the economy. The government knows better than entrepreneurs and knows better than everybody else. And they're looking at the situation. They're going, well, people don't want to invest in infrastructure. Well, duh. They don't want to invest in infrastructure because every time they do, or they try to, they lose money in Canada. This is an economic, there's a phrase that the Austrian economists say, and it's called regime uncertainty, where you have a jurisdiction where the government is so bad when it comes to business that people just don't want to go there. It's every time people go and invest, they lose their money. We saw this with the pipelines, all the different pipelines that got canceled, whether it was Canada that canceled a pipeline or Joe Biden that canceled a pipeline. It's all within the Canadian jurisdiction. We can't agree with each other across the board. So what do we need? We need a central authority to make everyone have to do it. And it's going to end up just like all the other central authorities across history. You know, when Joseph Stalin said, we're going to go do infrastructure projects, doesn't matter if we, you know, when you make an omelet, you got to crack a few eggs. And it turned out it was millions of people dead. When Mao Zedong did it, same thing. It was millions of people in a short period of time, starved to death. That's it. Now, what's going to happen in Canada? Do I think that Canadians are going to starve to death in the millions? No, probably not. They're probably going to leave the country in the millions. That's what's going to happen, because Canadians do have a choice. Canadians do have a choice, but how else can you keep them in? I mean, we see more bills coming down the pipe that will try to keep Canadians in. You know, the Berlin Wall was a physical wall. I think the wall that's coming for Canadians is going to be a digital wall. And that every time I hear the term CBDC, central bank digital currency, or digital ID, that's what I think. That's what I think. It's a way to keep Canadians from leaving. But at the end of the day, the majority of the ones who are capable of leaving are going to, and they're doing it now. That's what's happening in the immediate.
Well, this is the conversation I was having right before we hopped on. Was how many Canadians are actually going to go? And I go, these conversations, there's certainly people that are contemplating it, but I don't think millions of Canadians are going to leave. I personally don't think that. I think there is going to be tens of thousands of Canadians leave, important Canadians leave, because they see what's coming and they're getting out of the way of this thing. But I don't know. Maybe in like when you look at Soviet Russia, did tens of millions leave, or was it a million? I'm just curious. Do you know off the top of your head, Clyde?
I don't know the numbers. I don't know the numbers of people who actually fled the Soviet Union when it came about, and I think the numbers would skew because different jurisdictions were gobbled up at different times,
Sure.
and there were a lot of people that left. And it's funny because in my own situation, I'm leaving, and I've already made this public. But I get this a lot, and I get a lot of people saying, "Oh, you're a traitor. You're this or that."
You're not a traitor. That's a
No, I don't
ridiculous
think.
statement.
No, of course. But what I think though is how many people, when the Bolshevik Revolution was happening and people saw the writing on the wall that were leaving, how many of those people were called traitors, and how many of the people stayed behind? Like it's an interesting dynamic. There was a lot of people at that time, even, let's be honest, people didn't realize the dangers of socialism. They didn't realize it. A lot of people were excited about it. They were excited with what was going to happen. Same with Mao Zedong when he took over and they had their Cultural Revolution, the Great Leap Forward. They all thought this is a good idea. We're going to be able to, using a new economic system, come out of poverty. But instead, it did the exact opposite. Nowadays, we're not. We have the benefit of hindsight, and we can see what happens when countries go down this path. It's not a good place, and a lot of people are seeing the writing on the wall. Now, you say like you don't think it'll be millions. I mean, it's happening in the tens of thousands per quarter in Canada, the amount of people that are leaving, and we don't have the exact numbers because we don't exactly have a tally on when people are leaving. When they leave the country, we don't say like, "Are you never coming back?" Is this something you never, you have in your plans? Especially when the government wants an exit tax. People are just saying, "No, I'm just going to Florida for the weekend," and they just never come back. It really comes down to that. Not only that, we have a lot of immigrants that are coming and leaving in short order. And it's only, I would say, not only, but it's mostly people with the skills that we want to stay in the country. That's what's happening. So, and I mean, how do I put this? Better Dwelling has been writing on this one for a while, and every once in a while a new article pops up. But the reality is Canadians are leaving in droves. They're leaving in record rates. They're leaving in the tens of thousands per quarter in Canada. You add that up, then it's hundreds of thousands per year, and that's massive on a long scale. If you have that many people leaving Canada, that's a severe brain drain, and as that occurs, it gets worse. It gets worse for Canada, and I think that some people are holding on especially in the West, because they believe that Alberta might become independent. And I think if that doesn't happen, it's going to accelerate in that direction.
Yeah. I guess I go the way my brain looks at it. Maybe it doesn't matter if it's tens of thousands or millions. Maybe the number doesn't matter. A lot of really good people are leaving because they can see what's going on and they want no part of it. And they're looking, is it a year in forward or 5 years in advance? And they're just going, we aren't changing direction. This is going to get worse. You look at all these bills that are coming in. It's going to make it even harder to leave. And they're getting out before like the storm. I was saying this morning, I interviewed, I did all these legacy interviews with married couples or just older folks about their life stories. And one of them really stuck with me. It was a farmer talking about the droughts in the 90s out in the West. And he said, in the good times, you always prepare for the bad. And, whether or not we think we're in a decent time right now, we probably both agree it's a pretty wild time right now. Mm-hmm. But there's still time to get ahead of, like the coming and pending, whether it's CBDC or digital IDs and all these things. You can still get out. What I foresee, and maybe I'm wrong on this, is there will be a ton of people that want to get out, but won't know how to get out. And they will be finding ways to ensure they can't get out. So the affluent people, the people that have been staring at this for years are already gone or are already in the process of leaving. And then there will be people that want to get out at some point and they just realize they can't. And so they will stay. Or am I wrong in that?
Well, I think people have a way of looking at it like, well, I have to set myself up because I need to be just as comfortable as I am in the immediate once I get
Mm.
to a new place. And a lot of people are afraid. I had the benefit of when I was a kid, when I was 8 years old, we made a major move with my family. We moved from Northern Ontario to Southwestern Ontario. And at that time, like that was a big shock. As a kid, like I had all my friends are gone and I have to make all new friends and all of this. But I saw it as like in retrospect, I see it as like this enlightening moment where I was like, wow, you really can just pick up everything and go. Like you really can do that and take your family with you, and your family will love that. But then later in life, when I came of age, I shipped off. I ended up in British Columbia and no family around. It was just me, right? And I did just fine. I fared just well. And later in life, I got not even that much later in life. I got married quite young in my 20s to a beautiful Japanese girl in Whistler, British Columbia, when I was living there. And we decided we moved to Japan for like 3 years, and then moved back. And we've had a whole adventure with our lives. But picking up, dropping everything, and going is easier than you think. It's absolutely easier than you think.
But it's a skill set you have. Right? Because your
It
life
is.
prepared you for it. One of the guys that I respect immensely, guest on the show, Drew Weatherhead, in the middle of COVID, they sold everything and they went to the States for 6 months right before they locked the borders or shut down the borders, right? He just got out. And they've been doing that ever since. So sorry, Drew, is it now 4 years you've been doing that? I think this is the fourth, fifth, maybe. Geez, maybe it's been 5 years. Like they've been just and I remember talking to him about it. And if I recollect it properly, they weren't a camping family. They weren't this family that did things like that. He sold his business, sold their house, bought a truck, bought a camper, and off they went. And you talk about an adventure. He's been on an adventure now for roughly 5 years, maybe a bit more. And I believe they're buying a place overseas now. Like I don't want to spoil any can of beans that I'm not supposed to, Drew. So
don't dox the guy.
yeah, that's right. But I mean, at the end of the day, I watched him do that. I've been watching him and listening to him. Like he felt like he had no other choice. And people can go back and listen to all his shows and everything else. And I think that raised some eyebrows. Like, holy crap! Like, is it that bad? Well, Drew did it years ago, and there's been other Canadians do it years ago as well. They're just like, I'm done with this. I ain't continuing on, and they're finding ways in different landing spots. I have Mikkel Thorup on here once a year, twice a year, and his big thing is come to Latin America. Like, there's so many opportunities down here. It's silly, and there's more Canadians exploring that. I just had a conversation earlier this week with a couple that is exploring the option through Mikkel. So there's a lot of us talking about this very thing, and I think are getting over the fear of what that actually means by just going and exploring conversations and maybe getting on a plane and going seeing it for themselves.
Yeah, stop talking about it. Do something. I mean, my channel name is Clyde Do Something. And it's funny because I think the best way to look at it is regret. Think about your future self and think about how much you'll regret if you just sat on something. You didn't do anything. You didn't make any moves. The whole reason why I have a channel and the reason why people even listen to me is because during COVID and when the truckers started going towards Ottawa, I saw the story and I wasn't even doing news at the time. At the time, I was doing other things, and I saw that story and I thought in my head, I have to do something. I'm still working. I can't just jump in a truck and go to Ottawa. But I do have the ability to talk to people on the internet. So I just made videos in the mornings thinking I'll regret it. I'll kick myself in the future if I said nothing. So I don't care if nobody watches or whatever, or I get in a ton of shit. Like if I get in a lot of trouble over this, whatever, this is my moment. And if I don't do it, I'm going to forever regret it. So I'd rather do it and fail than not do it and regret it forever. So I went and did that. And I think that's a way of looking at situations in life, especially if you're looking at Canada and you're going, holy cow, like this, I can't do this anymore. I can't be here. Say you're in the GTA and you're afraid for your safety and your family's safety. What the hell are you doing? Pick up and move. Get out of there. I don't see it getting any better. Let's just be honest. And I hate to be all doom and gloom, but I don't see it getting any better. And even if tomorrow they called an election and the Conservatives took over and everything was hunky-dory and it was moving in the right direction, Canada is in such a hole. It's easily 2 decades before Canada gets back to where it was in 2015. Just think about that, and think about that for your family's future. What do you want for your family? Do the best for them. That's really what's important.
Yeah. Well, we just had Tom Raz on. He was talking about his book of preparation. Forgive me, Tom. I'm spacing on the name of the book. I could look it up quick, I guess. But regardless, he's written a book on, analyzing where you live and basically picking out, I think it was 5 things of possible problems you could have, from anywhere from, loss of power to civil unrest. And when Tom's like, the number one thing in my area right now I'm concerned about is civil unrest, I'm like, yeah, I think a lot of people share that sentiment. And what's the best way to deal with civil unrest? Probably get out of the way of it.
Leg it, yeah, get out of there. unless that's the battle that you feel is your hill to die on. But really, think long and hard about that. Is that what that is? And I get this all the time. I get Canadians that'll call and they'll say, well, I'm not a coward. I'm gonna stay, and sure, you're not a coward, you're gonna stay. They'll say running away is what cowards do, and I'm from a long lineage of people who didn't do that, to which I would say, are you Native? Because at some point you're related to somebody who thought where they lived was crappy and moved to Canada. So, I mean, really think long and hard about it.
Well, the coward thing, once again, I guess I have no time for that argument. Mm-hmm. To me, whether we're talking about just, I just look at it as like preparing for what's to come. That can be in lots of different fields. That can be with your money. That could be with like natural occurring events, like a huge storm. Do you act like it'll never come, or do you look at historical trends and realize it has happened, whether you're sitting in Alberta or sitting in Ontario or Quebec? And I've interviewed enough people to know weather patterns do repeat, and we will have storms that come through that can just knock you on your butt for a few days, or knock the infrastructure on its butt for a few days. Are you going to act like that never happens? This is just, to me, it's just looking at the scenario and going, especially having young kids. Well, do I act like that can never happen? No, I probably should. Now, what course of action you take, that's completely up to every individual. If they want to go, calling them a coward doesn't make any sense. It's like, no, like you got to make the best choice for you and yours. And then the rest of us have to respect it. Like, I mean, that's what we're fighting for is respecting one another, trying to figure out how we coexist with one another and a tyrannical government at this point. In Alberta, we're kind of, I don't know, are we insulated? Is that the right word to use? Because there is this thought, well, not this thought. There is this idea that in 2026, there will be a referendum. It will be successful. It will set the stage for going our own way and breaking away from Canada. That is what a ton of Albertans are putting their coat on and waiting for and assuming is going to happen. And I think there's enough things going on to show that a referendum is going to come. There will be an opportunity, and we will know one way or another at some point in 2026, I think, on what Albertans truly want. But if that fails, then what?
Well, it truly is a vote for the future of that region and the history of that region Just look at the direction Canada's been going, erasing people's history, culture, everything. That'll just keep continuing. There won't be much in line for real opportunity when it comes to economic growth, because I mean, just look at it. I mean, even Danielle Smith is encouraging an empty pipeline to nowhere, right? I mean, if they build that pipeline, that's great. A lot of people will be working while they build that pipeline, but they still run into a problem where you're not allowed to feed tankers at the end of it. Like, you need all of the things to work together. It would make way more sense for an independent Alberta to say, well, forget British Columbia. Don't want to worry about them. Let's go down through Montana and then out through Washington if we want to hit out international.
Well, Danielle Smith was
trade.
just on Vasi Kapellanos. Is that how I say her last name? I think so. And she talked about that, that, you know, she's looking at all the prime ministers and the prime minister and all the premiers, and they all talk about Canada working together. So she's trying to work with Canada, but there is the option to just go south and export more and more to the United States, because they would be eager to take it. But she's still talking about this idea of, you know, premiers are saying, yeah, we're going to work together. And then she talks about exploring this pipeline. EB comes out and says it's never going to happen. First Nations come out and say it's never going to happen. You know, and like, it's one thing to say it. There's another thing to start building it in your own province. But it is another thing entirely with the provinces around, because, you know, the tanker ban, BC, and trying to get anything through there, the rules, the litigation, the bureaucracy, that is a giant beast that I don't know how I don't know how you fix. I don't know if you can fix it.
Well, just think about it. The reason why no businesses or entrepreneurs or investors are looking to Alberta to build a pipeline is because there's no money to be made. And it's a huge risk that they would spend all that kind of money and then it would just sit empty. So in any hopes that in the future we could have that, the government has to jump in and make these things. I don't think it's a feasible thing. I don't think it's a good way, a good outlook on things. EB is not going to allow for that. Just look at what's going on in British Columbia. I don't have any hope that there's going to be a conservative government in British Columbia, just because of how the Conservatives have been falling apart. You know, EB might come forward in the next few months, call a snap election because of what's happening with the British Columbia Conservatives, and gain even more power. This is a real possibility. I don't know if you've been following that story. Have you heard anything about that?
No. Tell me about it.
Okay, so John Rustad, who's the leader of the Conservatives in British Columbia, has really, for lack of better terms, shit the bed. Absolutely shit the bed. And he's first he kicked out Dallas Brody from the party for making statements about, you know, the whole the graves and what happened. And we all know the story, where it's really not PC. You're not allowed to come out and say that, yeah, no bodies were found. It was essentially a hoax. Like, there's no evidence of that ever happening. But then the story gets shifted, right? Okay, well, then it turns into a story about, well, the schools were really terrible to people. And whether that's true or not, that doesn't negate the fact that what's been purported is this genocide that never took place. It never happened, right? And when people point that out, you know, a true statement, you think that the Conservative leader would at least be behind the idea of speaking the truth, especially when the holidays called Truth and Reconciliation. So Dallas Brody was ejected from the party in a pretty bad way, right? She was ejected from the party, where John Rustad actually on social media used an out of context clip of Dallas Brody. So enough people were pissed off about that. We had Jordan Keeley at that time. He ditched the party as well, went and became an independent, giving the party even less power in the legislature. And then recently we got word that Lindsay Shepherd was fired, a staffer from the party. You may remember her from years ago. She went international with her story at, I think it was the Waterloo University, where she dared as what was her position? She was like a student teacher there.
Yeah, I
She was
think
going through-
a TA, wasn't she? And
Yeah.
she brought up Jordan Peterson.
She actually brought up an argument and then showed both sides of the argument, but both sides was, one side was Jordan Peterson, and just because she showed Jordan Peterson, she almost lost her job. She didn't actually get fired, but it created a huge international stink. And then all these years later, she just mentions that this whole idea of truth and reconciliation and having these images in the legislature was a travesty, because it's a travesty of the truth, because it's a distortion of what actually happened in Canadian history. And I mean, it's a lie. It's absolutely a lie. So she points that out, and it was pressure from an activist, a native activist that's also an MP in British Columbia. She put pressure on Rustad, and Rustad fired her. Now it's come down to the fact that there's an effort to get John Rustad out as leader, and he's blocking it every step of the way, trying to hold on to power. And what is this doing? It's creating a bad morale within the conservative side of British Columbia, which is already kind of ruptured. And it's creating a vacuum for David Eby to come in. He could probably call an snap election any moment. And the Conservatives are just shattered.
Tanking.
Yeah.
You go back to that BC election. How long did it take after the night where they counted votes and everything for them to get through everything? It was over a week, wasn't it?
Oh, they're still finding votes.
Right. You think of, oh man, you just... Yeah, I've become almost black-pilled on the whole idea of politicians fixing what we're in. Like, you got to take ownership of your life. And if that means, and if that, like, to once again to go back to this coward or traitor thought, I'm like, that's a futile argument. That is about as weak as it gets.
I mean, just picture it, like 13th floor of a building with no elevator in Soviet Russia, and the family sitting around the table saying, "At least we're not cowards." Like, is that the life you want for yourself? Because that's where we're going. That's absolutely where we're going. And holy cow, like, just think about it. As more and more Canadians that are entrepreneurial and free market oriented leave the place, you're left with more people that are just government employees and soaks on the whole system. What do you think?
They don't see an issue with. Well, I just go back. I tell this story lots, but like 6 years ago, for sure, I believed in the government. I didn't think there were, I didn't think there was. Well, I'd interviewed a lawyer, Carol Cross, and I actually got to interview her husband. She's since passed. And I remember saying along the lines of, like, government can't be that bad. And she just laughed. She's like, Shaun, if they weren't, I wouldn't have a career, right? Like, I constantly, what I'm doing is fighting the government because they step over the line all the freaking time. And so, you fast forward, and I just think, how many Canadians are sitting there going, no, the government's got our best interests at heart. Oh, this internet censorship bill is a good thing. It's like, is it? Oh, yeah. You wait and see how that turns out after they push it through. Like, it's not going to be fun. And now, how long does it take? Does it take 2 weeks? Does it take 3 years?
On the surface, it'll look great. On the surface, it'll look great, especially for those people.
We're going to keep everybody safe, Clive. We're going to keep everybody safe.
They will. They'll keep them safe from hearing our opinions. They'll keep them safe from realizing what's actually happening. It's a way of keeping the Wizard of Oz behind the green curtain. That's exactly what's going to happen. What are they going to do? They're going to take people like us off the internet. Too bad, because I'll be in Texas and you won't be able to stop me. But there's going to be a lot of people. We'll see. How fast will they act on it? I don't know. I'm not sticking around to find out. That's what's happening.
Well, I know on this side, certainly we've been having lots of chats at figuring out the loopholes of it, because there will be, like they can't shut down the entire internet. Like but what they can do is they can make life extremely difficult on you, right? We're talking about basically being removed from, I don't know,
Civil society. They're removing you.
telecommunications,
Yeah.
right? Like shut down the ability to, and then the crazy thing about it is, forgive me, you probably know the line better, is that it can be done incognito. Like they don't have to, what's the word I'm looking for here, Clyde? I should have brought up the actual term where they
Clandestine. I don't
yeah,
know.
honestly, right? There's right in the bill. They basically don't have to tell people.
Nope. And you have no recourse. So if you try to contact your internet service provider or your telecommunications company, and you say something happened with my service, it's been shut off, they're not at liberty to tell you why.
You think? Okay, thinking about this, I think of like banks, right? We just had Eva Chipiak, what was that, a month and a half ago, maybe now, where RBC, she's the latest to have her bank account and say, "Oop, you're no longer, you're too much risk as a customer, so gone." Is there a possibility for a new internet provider to come up through the weeds? No different than a Bow Valley Credit Union has really found a way here in Alberta. I know there's a ton of Canadians that wish they were nationwide, but have found a way to just, no, we're not going that way, and like grab a ton of people and not bend to the whims of the government? Or do you not see that possibility?
Well, if they have lines in the company, so if they're using the infrastructure that exists within Canada and this bill exists, they'll be sanctioned if they don't comply with any orders, because these will be lawful orders, mind you. They changed the law so that it's lawful. I hate to pull out this, and I'm not, it's not a Godwin's law situation, but talking about the people in Germany in the 1930s, they didn't break any laws. They just changed the laws. Same with Mao. He just changed the laws. Stalin changed the laws. Everything that these people ever did was lawful. And this is the reality that we're staring at here, is that they're changing the laws so that these are lawful orders to tell telecommunications companies, you cannot operate in this country if you break lawful orders. So what are you going to do if you're using the infrastructure as a telecoms company? You're going to comply. Now, the only other way to get to connect to the internet is probably via satellite, and that's Starlink. What are you going to do? Is Tesla, not Tesla, but Starlink under Elon Musk, is he going to just tell Canada, screw you, I care more about freedom of speech?
Possibly.
It is a possibility. He did that with Ukraine. So there is a chance that Musk will say, forget it. But he does, remember, when it comes to X, he does comply with the laws in Brazil when they thwarted free speech in Brazil. So on X, there are limitations to free speech there. And that's because he's complying in order to operate within the country, because he sees it as a benefit rather than having other platforms being able to exist on there. And of course, if you use a VPN, then you're not worried about those restrictions. And I guess that's the long game for that situation. But at an ISP level, it doesn't matter if you're using a VPN, because you can't log on. That's the point. So will we be able to use Starlink in the future if you get cut off from the internet, and just hope that they never figure out that you've got a contract with Starlink, or do it off grid? I have no idea. Maybe there are ways around it, but this seems like a legitimate way of shutting people down.
Yeah, it's an interesting, maybe interesting isn't the right word.
Terrifying is the word.
Troubling. It's a troubling thing to sit and like stew on, right? Because like, you go back to all the bills they've been talking about bringing in, and whether this one passes or it comes back in a different iteration, you can see which way they're heading. And they've been heading this way for some time. They really deem misinformation and malinformation and all these different informations, hate speech, on and on and on.
I love those terms. You know how to define those terms, by the
Sure.
way? So misinformation is when you don't know. You're just wrong. You're just wrong about something. That's misinformation. So you think something, you have an opinion, and you're wrong. That's misinformation. That's free speech. I'm sorry, but people are wrong all the time. Disinformation is when you knowingly say something false. You're saying something that's incorrect, and you're doing it to deceive people, that kind of thing. So misinformation is just being wrong. Disinformation is deception. This is the interesting one, malinformation. Malinformation is correct information that makes somebody look bad.
So every time we talk about the government,
it's malinformation. That's correct. Now, it could be wrong about it, and then that would be misinformation, but it's definitely not disinformation. I'm not trying to deceive anybody.
Well, that's what I love about, I don't know, I guess what I do is I'm not trying to deceive anyone. I mean, I've had to air a couple conversations over the course, what is this, 928 today, I think? So over 900 some conversations. I've had a couple that I've been hesitant to release, but then I go back and I'm like, no, I release everything. If I'm going to sit with somebody and talk to them, the conversation's coming out, whether I like it or not. And I've pissed off some people and it's been uncomfortable. But the whole point of it is I trust the audience to sit and listen to a long form conversation where it's not edited and we don't take things out of context and we don't clip things and try and like skew it one way. And then they can go, they're smarter than me. Like they're a beautiful group of people that just listen. Mm-hmm. And then they'll send in their thoughts. They'll send in some questions. They'll send in, you got to have this person on. And then we do it all over again. And yet that is a danger to the Canadian government because you can't have people talking.
It's always a danger to a regime. And that's it. Like if you have a free society, you wouldn't even consider them a regime. It would just be a government. And this is what I love about the United States and the founding of the United States and the philosophy behind everything. It was the idea that government needs to be small as possible. Now, obviously, the United States has a giant government, and that's not ideal, but it does have a framework to get back to that. Because nowhere else in history has, a powerful government ever relinquished power just because people asked for it. It's always because they have to. They're forced to do that. Now, whether they're forced to do that legally, I don't know if votes ever really get you out of that. Possibly, if you have a leader that's strong and wants to do that. We see that with Trump in some ways, and in some ways we don't. The government is kind of growing. The spending is getting bigger, but I'm in total admiration for the American experiment because the thought process behind it was always that the government should be out of the way and the people should be able to decide their own fates. What we're seeing in Canada is not a new story. It's not something that we haven't seen before. It's just a new flavor of it. It's a bunch of elitist pricks out there that think that they know better for you. They think that they know what you should do with your life because it'll benefit the greater good. This is the thing that they always use that term, the greater good. But it's hubris at the end of the day, because the most prosperity that we've ever seen in the history of humanity was a time where people were left alone to do things and make their own decisions.
Yeah. And where government stayed out of the way, laws actually had a little bit of teeth to them to make sure that, we didn't have criminals running around. Well, I mean, we just had the news this week of Chris and Tamara, 18 months. Curious, your thoughts on 18 months house arrest?
I'm furious at that. I think it's a kick in the face that, you know, they threw out 7 and 8 years respectively for the two of them, and the confiscation of Big Red, which just seems like revenge. It didn't seem like anything that really had any purpose other than let's take this national symbol and destroy it. And then they give them 18 months house arrest when they know full well these two individuals are traveling around Canada and inspiring people. This is the purpose of that. Right after all said and done, no, you have to sit in your home for whatever 18 hours a day, and you can go out if you work. You could go out if 5 hours for shopping a week for the next year and a half. You kidding me? It's insult to injury is what it is. The judge should have commuted it as time served and had a giant apology for the 3.5 years that they were put through for doing what a judge deemed totally lawful. They didn't break any laws, but they were convicted of what? Mischief? The equivalent of doing a burnout in a parking lot. Seriously. That's what that's spray painting a wall. Actually, spray painting a wall would have been worse because there's actual damages done. But it was, you know, mischief. You made a little bit of noise. And they didn't even personally make any of the noise, which is crazy. So this was lawfare. This was them putting them through 3.5 years of hell. And now they're going to have to go through another 1.5 years. I see it as bullshit. The idea that we're supposed to be happy with this result. I'm not happy with it.
Yeah, I'm happy for Chris and Tamara that there is now end in sight. But that's probably where my happiness ends, right?
Yeah,
like
right there.
You go, it's nice they're not in jail for 7 or 8 years. Yes, that is nice. It's nice that now you can actually see that, you know, the end of the tunnel. And, you know, they can, I don't know, move on with their life. But I mean, like, come on. Everything you just said. And then some. It's like, not to mention, like, it's been 3.5 years of, like, being dragged through the mud and pulled. I mean, Tamara's been in jail. What was it, 50 days?
Yeah, I think 49 days she spent in jail. And then.
So, like, you could sit there and go, time served. I mean, if you want to tack something on community service, they're already doing it in spades. So, like, the community service, like, I think Western Canada would just salute you and say time served there as well. It's just, to me, the stage has been set for whatever comes next. I don't know what comes next, but if you're going to stand up to the government, I already had come to the firm conclusion years ago now that if you can stand up against the government, you best be ready to go to jail for it, because they're making the statement here of, like, you stand up, even if it's peaceful, we're going to throw you in the slammer. And now they've drug it through with millions of dollars, the time frame, the court, the jail time, and then they tack on 18 months to each one. Yeah, like, that is, you know, when you're talking about getting out of a country, it's like, well, for what? I'm just sitting here having conversations, but for what I see, I'm like, man, a whole bunch of people are going to be in the crosshairs of, you know, online, use all the words you want if they want to shut you down and then go after you and make an example of you. And probably, no doubt, they're going to pick somebody here in Canada and make an example of them whenever that bill comes through.
Yeah, just wondering who it's going to be. Wondering who's going to be. I almost hope it's me, to be honest. And the reason why is because I'm a U.S. citizen, and I know what Marco Rubio put out there on Twitter. He said the State Department is noting that there are governments around the world that are trying to silence Americans' right to free speech and the First Amendment, and there are going to be consequences for those governments that do that. So I am a U.S. citizen. I am in the process of leaving. That's another story altogether. Why we're waiting. the only reason we're waiting is because my wife's just waiting on a backlogged immigration system for her green card so that we can leave.
You got a time frame on that, Clyde, or do you know? It's kind of up in the air.
Man,
not to get too personal.
Okay, well, no, this is out there and it's public. So when I first filed, it's called an I-130 petition. It's sponsoring an alien relative, and I know it sounds funny, but my wife and I have been married for 19 years, and when I filed it, USCIS or the USCIS website gives you a rough timeline of what it'll take. It started at 8 months, and I was like, wow, that's a long time. And then it jumped to 14 months not long after. And I've been keeping track of it. It's been 12 months since I filed, and it's now just ticked from 5 to 4 months. So that would be a total of 16 months if it goes that entire time frame. So I've been trying to get a hold of them. You get automated systems that won't send you to an agent, and you can't really get a hold of anybody. It's infuriating. It's a thing.
But regardless, if I step back, by the end of this year, Clyde could be sitting in the States.
The end of this year, probably not, because we're already at the end of the year. So maybe
October, November, December, still 3 more months.
Yeah, so it might be early 2026. That's the timeline it's looking like.
And then Clyde will be doing his show from somewhere down south.
Not somewhere. We know we're moving to Texas, so that's going to be the Austin area, but outside of the Austin congressional district, which is a nice thing. Don't want to be in a purple district. I'd like to be in a red district personally. So that's where we're going. It's going to be exciting. It's a really nice area, and the plan is when we do get the go ahead, I think we're going to do a road trip. The family's going to do a road trip. Like, we're going to send our things down and then get like a little trailer and then make a whole adventure out of it. So I'll probably be blogging from that on my show, talking about the news and stuff from different scenery every day for that period.
Well, I appreciate you hopping on. I know, for the people who are curious, right? Like, you work full time, and so I'm like, hey, do you want to hop on and talk Bill C8? And I'm like, chances are you can't because of work and everything. So I appreciate you working it in your work schedule to hop on and do this, because it's an important thing to talk about. I haven't gone real in depth on Bill C8. I'll see if I can't get maybe another. I was thinking maybe a lawyer or something. I'm sure there's somebody out there that people want to hear, the legal ramifications. But sitting here, I'm like, I'm not saying there hasn't been other people that have been on the podcast that have talked about Bill C8, but your video on it pretty much outlined it, and the fears and concerns. And I just appreciate you coming on and talking about it. And if we don't talk between here and you heading south, I'm sure we will. But I think there will be a lot of people interested to see what that looks like for you. And talking about Canada from afar. Drew was my first I don't know, I guess iteration. Like, I've certainly had Vivon a few times as well, right? Different Canadians who've left and continue to talk about Canada from afar. And that is just as beneficial as being in Canada and talking about Canada, right? Like, you need eyes on the problems, and just appreciate what you do and look forward to seeing what the future holds for Clyde and your family.
Well, I appreciate that. So I just want people to know that what I had to say about Bill C8 is not hyperbole. This is what's actually written in the bill. You can go read it for yourself. Go to the government website. It's up there on the website. As for moving to the U.S. and continuing to talk about Canada, this is a story that Americans need to hear. What happened to Canada? We are the canary in the coal mine. The canary's passed out, and the Americans need to see what's happening, because there is a lot of pushes for similar stuff in the US. And yes, they have a more vibrant constitution, and they have a much better separation of powers, but it doesn't mean that this can't happen. A constitution like the United States needs a people that are educated and are willing to live under that system. Because as soon as they step away from that as a people, then there are no more protections under the law. So this is very important for Americans to hear this story, and that's why I'm bringing that story to them.
Thanks again, Clyde, for hopping on. Appreciate it. And I'm sure we'll run into each other soon enough, but appreciate you giving me some time.